Hey everyone, J-Rod Plays here, and we're starting out the new grind for this particular season for the Grandmasters with the Lake of Shadows. I'm going to be putting together a guide where I'm going to cover the build, and then I'm going to go through the commentary and just kind of talk through how I approached the Grandmaster. And I did pretty good. I think I only died one time, and that was just because I fell off the map. So I did a pretty good job. The end got a little bit scary because everybody was trying to get up into the final spot that you can kind of cheese the boss from at the very end from the top. So that was a little bit scary. That was like moments from disaster moments there. But from here I'm going to cover the build, and then from there I'm going to go into the commentary and the full run. So with the build, I'm using the Wish Ender. I'm using Zalu's Bane, and this is just going to be for stunning champions. I'm going to be primarily using Wishender, and then if I need to do a bunch of damage, Commemoration with Reconstruction and Killing Tally is what I use. I like it because just the Reconstruction gets you such a big mag that you can shoot through a lot of things, and this particular Nightfall actually has the ability to have your overcharged machine gun, so it doesn't matter what the specific surge is, you just get 25% bonus anyways to your machine gun damage. I'm running a solar subclass, so that way we can actually take advantage of the overcharged weapons. So kinetic weapons do increase damage when your subclass element matches an active surge. So since I'm a solar subclass, I'm actually going to have a ton of damage with the bow, and that's going to be my heavy damage dealing weapon. And so from there we're going to take advantage of also the resists so that we can protect from arc surge. Although I'm doing one arc resist, I'm actually going to be doing two of the void resist because of the middle boss. That middle boss has a ton of void damage, so I'm just trying to stay alive there. And then since you have a ton of shields, you just have to rely on your bow. Your bow will pop most of the shields, no problem, and chew through enemies as well. And so that's going to be the setup. These are going to be your Nightfall modifiers. Now back to the build. So from here, this is the setup that I have. On my helmet, I'm running a Powerful Friends just to fill the 1 energy because I'm going to be running Kinetic Siphon and Heavy Ammo Finder. And then my stats I want to max out Resilience, 70 Recovery, and 70 Discipline. Although I get to 100 Discipline once I have an Armor Charge. So the moment I pick up an orb, the Fauna Focus will give me that additional 30, and I have 100 Discipline, so keep my Healing Grenade up. Now for the actual setup here, we're doing the Impact Induction just to get grenade energy back. Really, you can do whatever you want. I just prefer using this particular setup so that I can always use my melee to get a little bit of grenade energy. These are the resists that I was speaking about. I'm doing triple kinetic surge because again my bow is going to be doing most of the work. I'm using time dilation to keep that up so that I have my abilities and my damage as max as I can. And then I'm using Proximity Ward to protect myself if I get into a bad situation or I go to finish a champion. That Overshield is really strong and it'll actually protect you. And then of course Bomber, that'll make sure that you have the ability to get your grenade back as well, just like this does here. So this kind of feeds into my healing grenade. It's all about survivability when you're doing Grandmasters. Now I'm going to talk about the subclass. So I'm doing Healing Rift. That's just going to be beneficial to me because I like kind of standing and positioning the rift to where I can get my health back. You can do the Phoenix Dive setup with the Healing Grenade, but I just feel like it's a lot easier just to do the Healing Rift, and the Healing Grenade of course is just a reflex thing. I'm using the Touch of Flame, and in this case I would switch out Heat Rises for Icarus Dash for this particular one just because there's a lot of areas where you can accidentally almost fall off, and Icarus Dash can sometimes save your life. And as well as when you're in the final room, Icarus Dash can help you get up on the roof, and it does in this case for me. You can use Incinerator Snap or Celestial Fire. Probably go Celestial Fire in this case just because it's better to use from longer range in a Grandmaster, and anything else I would use Incinerator Snap more likely. And then with the Ember of Empyrean, that's going to allow me to get Solar Weapon Final Blows to extend Radiant if I was going to be using my Zalu's Bane, and that's one setup that you can change for this particular build. I ran this just because this was something that I was already using with my other build, but you can swap this out to get that additional 10 Resilience if you decide like, hey, I want to get an additional 10 in another stat. You can do that. But you want to keep your Ember Singeing up so that way you get your class ability back. You can switch to your Zalu's Bane and get kills to get your class ability back. You want to do Ember of Ashes to get more Scorch stacks. That's going to help you with your super damage. This is going to give you Radiant, so that way when you're constantly using your melee ability, you can get Radiant, and that's going to be kind of the setup that I went in there with. Now these are all optional because of the way that the class actually is going to revolve mostly around healing and playing back. You're not really going to be tied into to one thing. You can go with stats in any of these. You can pretty much change it up, but I would still probably stick with Ember of Singeing and Ember of Ashes, and then you can switch these two out, although it is really nice to get the Radiant buff, so I would stay with this as well, and then maybe just switch out Ember of Empyrean for something useful. You can switch it out for Ember of Solace to get longer duration straight out of it, so you don't have to worry about constantly getting kills with your Zali's Bane, since you're going to be using your bow in most cases. And so that's going to be the setup and the build. With the weapons, again, I just Killing Tally Reconstruction, Explosive Payload Incandescent, and then everybody knows Wishender by now. And it's going to be my anti-barrier setup. So I got anti-barrier and unstoppable, and those are the two things you have to worry about during this GM. So now that that's wrapped up, I'm going to see you guys in the commentary. That's going to kick in, and then from there we'll just commentary straight through, all the way through the strike. It's actually a really quick strike. I think it's only like 20-25 minutes, and so it's not going to be too long of a watch, but at least you can kind of see how it all plays out ahead of time, so that when you go in there with your LFG, you'll be able to actually kind of contribute and be comfortable knowing what's coming around the corner if you haven't done the new Lake of Shadows, or you're new to the new Lake of Shadows setup, because it's slightly different than the old Lake of Shadows used to be. So I'll see you guys in that. Alright, so when you touch down, you're going to be immediately under fire from your right, so just be careful with that. You know, and then the new shield type, of course, you're going to have the strand shield type, so you can shoot through that with your bow, or you can shoot through that with your heavy like I was doing here. I was also taking advantage of full draw, so you can shoot through the flank shields with full draws on the Wishender. And it's a nice thing to have teammates that have good shots. I actually had some pretty good teammates in this LFG. They were able to kind of pick at things right at the right time with the right timing. They didn't let any of these orbs get through. They didn't let things stack up. I even shot through that goblin. I don't know if you saw that. Through that goblin to the back goblin to kill that goblin and remove its shield from the front goblin. So pretty nice to have the Wishender over-penetrate like that and get that additional damage from the kinetic. Now, if you're new to the Lake of Shadows strike, the goal here is going to be to push this payload all the way through to the back wall. And so what we're doing is we're little by little getting the payload to move. You don't want to push it too far ahead because that'll force enemy spawns. And so you wanted to make sure that you're clearing what you can while you have it, and then just moving the payload when you need to. The reason I got up on the payload was just so I can shoot over this and get to this Colossus that was just in a bad spot.
That's a lot of blight.
So good timing. As soon as we killed the Colossus, we got the other spawn in. It would have been kind of sucky to have the Colossus up and have the Unstoppable running at us as well. And so just like any other GM, once you get that stun, you want to hit him with everything that you have. So I went straight to my heavy. And right now I'm just trying to get the stun in. And there's that overshield that I mentioned in the build. As you can see, if something were happening to be shooting me at the same time, I would be able to have plenty of time to get away after I get that finish and get a healing grenade off, which I have healing grenade waiting. As you can see, also my teammates are pretty similar in their mindset of let's get these finishes in so that we're not wasting time or ammunition. There are going to be plenty of moments where you'll see that me and the other teammate also both go in for the finishes, so very similar playstyle. I got, like I said, pretty lucky with these guys. They weren't scrubs by any means. A nice synergy too was that Stasis subclass. It worked out really well because I wasn't running well myself. I was running the you know, the Dawnblade super, and so because I was running Dawnblade for damage purposes and for ad clear, not having the well, having that change where instead of having to sit everybody in one place and just kind of get picked at by the enemies and also possibly killed by the purple orbs that come from this middle boss, it's better to have stasis freezing them so that way we can get the kill off and clear the rooms quickly versus having two wells where we're just sitting and we're just getting picked at by these heavy attacks that have that additional damage.
It's actually working.
Because that middle boss is super overtuned, the Servitor. A lot of the tracking on the orbs you'll see here in a little bit is ridiculous. Like I could be mid-air and it actually tracks me mid-air and almost through an air dodge, which was nuts. I was like, wow. I much prefer this particular area in the new Lake of Shadows compared to the other one where there are just a bunch of captains down there just throwing the little arc orbs at you and you were just kind of stuck in that little area and you couldn't really jump down until you killed them. This one is a much more chill experience, and I'd much rather have this unstoppable just pushing us than have to deal with like all these arc captains throwing a bunch of arc orbs and just kind of auto-killing you. Now from here you'll notice that I spun around quickly just to make sure that I wasn't going to get flanked. That Taken Centurion is the same kind of captain that I was talking about that could easily kill you in the old Lake of Shadows, so that one right there can wipe your team if you're not careful. What's weird about this particular corruption on the ground is this corruption doesn't always go away with the payload, so that's another thing to look out for. I don't know if it's like a bug, or I don't remember it being like that in the past versions of this Lake of Shadow, where the corruption stayed even though the payload is there. So you can see the corruption still on the ground, even though the payload is past it. So that was kind of shitty. But no big deal. I mean, the corruption doesn't move, so just kind of keep your feet up. Oh, here's a big moment that you want to make sure that you don't get wiped at. You're going to have the 2 turrets that do a bunch of damage, and they're going to get pushed by the Unstoppable. It used to be multiple Unstoppables, so thankfully it was just a 1 and not like 3 that I remember. So this one is kind of toned down a little bit. Now from here what I was doing was just trying to pick through the shields of the flanks. Again, the bow can shoot through the shields, and then make sure that the Scorpion tanks are dead. Or the Scorpion turrets, sorry, the Scorpius turrets. And just the Wish Ender is just such a nice bow though. It's just chewing through everything. Weird angle there on that Scorpius turret. And as you can see, if you're ready, you can actually pick the one farther away before it even pops up. Oh yeah, be careful with the one hiding around that corner too, because that'll easily melt somebody. So right now we've got 8 reses. Not bad to me, you know, not bad. Once we get here, I'd like to have a little bit more, but we had a couple of careless deaths. And there's that ice turret doing its thing, doing its work, doing God's work. When you're in this situation, try to get everybody around the splinter. The more people are on the splinter, the faster it moves. It's a slight difference. Every little second saved of your life waiting on this thing is worth it. And my crew did a good job of focusing the champions, because sometimes you'll get in groups with LFGs where like one LFG is just like off out in the middle of nowhere just shooting random ads, and there's a champion there and it's getting stunned over and over again. Thankfully that wasn't my group.
Chimera ahead.
When you kick a hornet's nest, surely one of them is bound to be a bit bigger than the rest.
And fleshy with tentacles? Devrim hasn't seen a hornet recently.
Right. Well, out it goes.
As you can see, there's another death, and that's what I was talking about with the tracking on this. Like, he's in not a bad spot. Like, that's tactically a good place to stand because you can get eyes on him and anything that may spawn underneath him, and there's no corruption in this little corner. But it's just the tracking, like these purple orbs come right around, and from here what I'm going to do is I'm going to utilize my Daybreak, and I'm just going to melt the crap out of the boss. I think I take a third off of its health with the Daybreak, and I was surprised that I didn't get even more super energy while we were fighting him and get another super off, because the bow itself, it just does so much damage that normally it chunks you up another super. But you know, this one and only Matt and I were doing a pretty good job of holding the same position and not like blocking each other. Like sometimes I'll run into people who just like have to stand on top of me, like they cannot pick another angle, and instead of keeping the same angle and just changing your elevation to the boss, you know, the distance between each other, so like we're kind of cross-firing. As you see, I was standing behind him, giving him his space because he was there first, and I was just helping trade out. Every time he would shoot, I would shoot, he would shoot, and so that's what we were doing there. And then even one and only topped over to the other guy's position where I thought he was going to get killed, but he was actually over there doing a good job knocking off the black orbs that show up, and I was playing Distract so that he can actually get the boss's orbs dead so we can start doing damage to the boss again. So, again, pretty good crew. Axel, same thing. Here I'm doing my best to shoot these orbs that come after you. The small and fast-moving purple orbs have tracking that will eventually lay off of you, but these other orbs, the larger kind of taken-looking orbs, will continue to track you until they blow up, kind of like a Slova bomb. So you have to shoot them, or they can wipe you. So just be very careful anytime you see that stuff come out. You want to make sure that you're protecting your team and you're shooting those things down immediately. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a position using my Healing Rift, which is, again, better than the Phoenix Dive in this particular scenario, because I can drop the Healing Rift, I can stand in the Corruption, and it'll out-heal the Corruption. So that way I can stand a little closer and hold that angle and kind of prevent the blue, well, not necessarily the blue, but the purple tracking orbs from making their way through that small area. Those right here. As you can see, it's ridiculous. Like, that thing sailed right through and almost caught Matt here. But we're almost done. It was a nice, patient group. Nobody got too far up, and nobody extended themselves. We had a lot of time when we were doing damage on boss, all three of us, and he can only shoot one at a time. But, you know, the Axel guy did expend a lot of our reses here, but it is what it is. We still have 7 left. After I pick him up, we'll have 6. We didn't really use a whole lot at the boss area, so as long as you get to the boss room and everybody's up and everybody knows where to stand, no big deal. I always get this area confused with the final area where the Tormentor is. I always get myself ready as I'm coming around the corner to have the Tormentor fight, but it's actually not here yet. So this one here, you're just trying to make sure that you're not getting yourself booped, and you're using these angles to protect yourself. And then Unstoppable, we made quick work of that Unstoppable there. And again, a lot of this is just patience. A lot of people want to burn through this and try to get these, you know, sub 15-minute runs, which is fine. You can do that. But when you're just trying to clear this for your Conqueror, if it's something that you're doing as well as watching this video, trying to get your first clear of this for your Conqueror for this season, then just take your time. It's not a long strike. I mean, it's like a 5-10 minute difference to just play it safe and make sure you get it done versus having to start over again, because then you're really not saving time at that point when you spend 10 minutes and you get yourself in a bad situation and then you wipe and you have to start over again. And yeah, you can do another sub 15, but we spent that same 25 minutes and we got it done and you guys didn't. So, you know, kind of thing when you're talking about people who are trying to speed run this versus somebody who's taking their time and making sure they get it done. And again, you don't want to be the one wasting revives for your team. And this is a nice place to have Axel for the stasis, because again, these guys are going to be, you know, trying to get you the flanks, you know, and so that way they pop you off the edge. And then the stasis turret can also help clear the smaller adds. What I ended up doing was just moving out and just saying, you know what, it's time to pop. That way they just can't gang up on us. They just sent all the enemies running. And here's where I just couldn't believe that I lost my footing, because here I'm like right over the iron, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, whoop, I'm like standing on the floor, and then I'm not standing on the floor, and I didn't even see that hole there. So I didn't die in the best place, but it wasn't like the worst situation. You know, I'm not so far extended that they can't get me. Now the goal here is just to pick everything from a distance, so I'm going to get up to the top, and I'm going to go ahead and pick that there. And since you have your hand cannon with a payload on it, you can actually just stun the unstoppable from that distance too and ticket it as well. I just decided that I was kind of done with this Thresher, so I'm going to switch to my heavy and just take it out. And I don't know if you know this, but you can actually shoot the rockets coming in as well, so that's what I start doing as they get closer. I start shooting the rockets because they come in like a straight line, and I just didn't want to make sure that, I wanted to make sure that I didn't get killed by a random rocket when, you know, you can easily just shoot them out of the sky. Another nice ice turret there doing its job. Now here I jumped in and I shouldn't have. I should have stayed back, but I was just confident that we would be fine. I was trying to wait until it actually cooked down so that I can do a finisher on it, but didn't need to in the end. The reason I was using my hand cannon there is because I was preparing myself for this unstoppable that hides around the corner. I just didn't want to make sure that I wanted to make sure that I didn't get pushed. Now, since he's got his ice turret there, the unstop is going to lose its stun, but it's fine because I'd rather have it lose its stun and stay back than push all three of us and get like a triple kill with its boop. Here again is just a good example of focusing on the right thing. Everybody here is focusing on the barrier colossus instead of worrying about the one that can't barrier up, the shadow guard. And so I see that the barrier colossus is pretty much dying, so I switched over. Then when I went to shoot back, I was like, why isn't it dying? Well, I was shooting the ice turret. Just a weird spot for the ice turret. There's a great example of having the Icarus dash over Heat Rises. The timing on that would have killed me if I was Heat Rises, very likely. And then in this case I was just able to Icarus dash, and Icarus dash sent me right where I needed to be. Also got pretty lucky on these legionaries lining up for me. Normally these legionaries kind of piss me off because they run to the back and they're just like cowering in the corner, and then when you move up they start to try to gang up on you, especially once you've gotten hit by the rockets. Now here's the fight that I was looking forward to. So what I do here is I try to make sure the Tormentor is popped first. I try to get the shoulders popped because it thankfully moves slowly towards you. In this case the ice turret makes a big difference as well. You do want to prioritize the eyes because the eyes will gang up on you and they do a lot of damage in a short period of time. So that was actually very helpful. And now that he's popped, now I'm going to pop my super and I'm going to go in there and just get these ignitions. And my hope was that I can get him down low enough with my super that I can finish him. And sure enough, boom, here comes the finisher. And here me and Axel are in time again, trying to get that finisher and that priority. I should have picked up that heavy in the corner, but I just didn't see it. Now here's another one of those places that doesn't look very threatening, but there's like a lot of enemies in a short area, and for whatever reason that Centurion was just doing a ton of damage to me, so I had to back out. I almost got just completely robbed there, throwing the healing grenade to my feet, and it went actually downstairs. And then the geyser shot me right up in the air, and I almost didn't get a chance to get to my healing grenade. So here now it's winning time. And the reason I say that it's winning time, a lot of people are going to fail here because of the mechanics and the new mechanics. And just to briefly explain is you're fighting the boss Grask, I think is his name, and he's going to be spawning these small little pyramids. They're like floating, and they have like the resonance on them. And what you're going to do is you're going to shoot those, because if they explode, he'll actually be able to blow them up and then wipe you with them. So you have to shoot those. And thankfully with the bow you can one-shot them. And then what that's going to do is that's going to force you to move around the arena. And when you do move around the arena, you're going to end up getting engaged by a lot of enemies. And that's what usually kills most fire teams, is the groups of enemies just kind of overwhelming you. Now here's the path. I don't know if you were paying attention to the path that I took, but if you jump on the first little brick there, you're going to be able to jump on this cable. That cable will then allow you to kind of jump to the side, and you don't have to do it exactly from the same spot as long as you make it onto this cable, come around onto this landing here. There's no kill zone. Then you're going to get to the very top, and you either grab it or you boost like I did here. Then you have to jump up and out. See, I made the mistake of jumping straight up and not jumping out to my right. And now I have to deal with Axel and this other guy also trying to get up here. One key thing that we did too is we left the Colossus alive for the boss to spawn, because they're fighting each other right now. So the boss is not actively trying to kill us as much as it is dealing with the barrier champion. And then here's that like moments from disaster thing, because I got knocked off by trying to land on the area where all of my teammates were. And so just a frustrating situation, but the Axel got up there, and Matt is going to stay there on that edge, and I'm going to kind of go around him. He's going to hang out there, and I'm going to try to get up there this time. And I remembered, okay, I got to jump up and out and not just straight up, and then I can dash back, which is why I switch out to the Icarus dash. And so as long as you get to this point where I'm standing here, you won't get the turn back anymore, turn back zone, and then from there you'll be able to pick at the boss, and it's just like winning time from here. Midway through, you'll see that I have the super spawn, or super spawn. I could get my super basically, and then from there I can use it to burn the boss down. But one thing that I'll keep doing throughout the entire fight is I'm going to keep taking out the small pyramids that spawn, and they'll get little indicators over them. You don't have to take out the ads so much unless you get to the point where like a goblin spawns, and the goblin starts to shield the boss. The boss will also hide behind these floating materials, so it's good to have two people up here at least, so that way you have different angles. And Matt's over there doing just fine, dealing with the ads and kind of being able to duck behind if he's in trouble. So it is good to have one person over there. And so the whole flow of the fight is to pick at the boss, kill the pyramids, clear the ads if you don't have any angle on the boss, and then when you do have an angle on the boss, you're going to pick at the boss. And that's it. That's the whole fight, basically. That's winning time once you get up here. I also like to clear the knights, because the knights can sometimes get fire up there where you're standing. And so that's one thing that I do try to take out, and weirdly that knight just like disappeared. I don't know if he got killed by somebody else's arrow or what, but that knight just disappeared, and then I got credit for its death, so very, very odd there. But again, keep up with taking out these floating resonance pyramids that are there, these diamonds. So that way the boss can't use them to wipe the team, and then from there pick at the boss. I'm just going to let the fight finish out, and then I'll catch back up once we get to the end. And you can see here at the end, I have to take out this Taken Goblin to finish the boss up, and that's it. GG's. Just hop down, get your loot, make sure that you give your commendations if you're working on Guardian ranks, so that way you get that additional boost from doing a Nightfall, and you get more per commendation for a Nightfall clear than you would for like a normal strike. It's going to be the first is raids, then dungeons, and then Nightfalls. That's kind of the order in which you get more points. And then you'll see me here claiming everything and then saying GG to my teammates. And that's it. That's the Lake of Shadows. You can farm this over and over again for the Undercurrent, which people are saying is kind of a replacement for the Forbearance. I don't really see it that much as a replacement for the Forbearance, because the Forbearance has its own little place. It's kind of like a side thing because it's got the Volt Shot with Ambitious Assassin, so if you want to snag that, go ahead. But other than that, that's pretty much the whole thing, and I'll see you guys in the next one.